Some roads don't just take you somewhere, they take someone. Some roads don't just take you somewhere, they take the road. Don't think I'm crazy. That's the only way I can begin. Because it doesn't sound real. It sounds like one of those roadside ghost stories you swap around campfires. And I know how people react to those. Smiling, nodding, politely pretending to believe. But I was there, and I can't unsee it. I've been driving west, cutting through the desert after visiting my brother in Arizona. A long haul, nothing but scrubland and black sky. No towns for 40 miles either way. The kind of road where your headlights carve out a tunnel, and outside that tunnel, nothing exists. I hadn't seen another car in at least an hour. The radio was down to static. Even the stars looked blurred, like the night itself was smudged. That's when I noticed the man walking. He was up ahead, right on the shoulder. A thin figure moving slowly, almost mechanically. He didn't wave, didn't try to flag me down, just walked, a pale shirt glowing faintly in my beams. His arms swaying out of sync with his steps, like his body wasn't fully connected to itself. I eased off the gas. I don't know why. Maybe instinct, maybe dread. When I finally passed him, I glanced at his face. No features, not burned away, not hidden in shadow, just smooth, blank, like a mannequin left out under the stars. I pressed the accelerator hard. The tires kicked up gravel. I didn't look back, not at first. I just wanted distance. But when I finally checked the rearview mirror, the road behind me was empty. And yet, when the next curve came and my headlights swung across the desert, he was standing there, not walking anymore, not moving at all, standing in the sand facing my car. That's the second time. I kept driving, faster now, 80 then 90, my knuckles bone white on the steering wheel. I told myself it was exhaustion, a hallucination, a trick of desert shadows. But the thought kept gnawing at me. If it wasn't real, why did my body feel like it already knew him? Why was I shaking like I'd just escaped something alive? The highway stretched on, mile after mile. Nothing but blackness. I tried to focus on the road lines, on the mechanical rhythm of tires against asphalt, anything to settle my nerves. And then the temperature dropped. Not outside, inside. My vents were blowing air, but the cabin of my car grew suddenly cold, sharp enough that my breath fogged the windshield. I leaned forward, confused, reaching for the heater controls. That's when the radio crackled. I hadn't touched the dial since it turned to static, but now a voice pushed through, faint and broken, riding on a frequency that shouldn't exist. "You left me." The wheel jerked in my hands as I swerved, heart hammering. I stared at the radio display, the empty dial glowing faintly, and the voice came again, clearer this time. "You left me on the road." I slammed the power off. Silence. My breath loud in the empty cabin. But when I lifted my eyes back to the windshield, he was there. Not on the shoulder this time, not in the sand. In the middle of the road, standing dead center in the beams of my headlights, arms hanging limp, blank face tilted slightly, as though he'd been waiting for me to look up. No, 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 no. I hit the brakes so hard the seatbelt locked across my chest, the tires screaming against asphalt. The car fishtailed, then skidded to a stop. Dust swirled in the beams. My hands shook on the wheel, and the road was empty. Nothing there at all. Fleeting glimpses. I drove the next 10 miles with my eyes locked dead ahead, refusing to check the mirrors. My whole body was wound tight, like one wrong glance might snap something inside me. Finally, I forced myself to breathe, to think rationally. The desert can do strange things to a tired mind. Heat by day, black emptiness at night. It plays with you. That's what I told myself anyway. I slowed the car back down to 70, trying to convince my pulse to follow, but the glimpses kept coming. First it was the reflection, just for a second. When I looked into the rear view, I didn't see my own eyes looking back. The mirror caught a pale oval instead, smooth, blank, watching me from where my face should have been. I blinked hard. It was gone. My own face returned, pale and wild-eyed, sweat shining at my temples. I told myself not to look again, but the road is long and your eyes wander. The second time, it was on the passenger seat. Just the outline, like someone had pressed against the leather when I wasn't looking. A faint impression of a body sitting there. I stared so long I nearly drifted into the sand before wrenching the wheel back. And the third glimpse. That one was worse. I passed a mile marker, its number swallowed by dust, and as my headlights swept past the sign, there he was again, standing right behind it, half hidden. His smooth face turned perfectly toward me, still, silent, waiting. By the time I registered it, he was already gone, swallowed back into the dark. He's following me. The words slipped out before I realized I'd spoken them aloud. That's when I knew. It wasn't the desert playing tricks. It wasn't exhaustion or my imagination. He was on the road with me, and he wasn't letting go. The touch. The highway had turned into an endless ribbon. My eyes burned from keeping them open too long, but I didn't dare blink for more than a second. I was afraid of what might change if I did. The desert outside was silent, too silent. No insects against the glass, no distant hum of power lines, just the engine and my own pulse echoing in my ears. That's when the car shuddered, not from the road. This stretch was smooth as glass. It was different, like someone had slapped the trunk with both hands. A heavy, deliberate thud. My stomach flipped. I checked the mirror. Nothing, just dust trailing into blackness. Another slam, this time against the roof. Louder, closer. I ducked instinctively, heart hammering, and kept both hands locked on the wheel. I told myself, it's nothing. It's wind, debris, maybe something loose rattling around. And then I felt it, a press of weight on the roof, directly above me. Slow, purposeful, like someone was crawling across the top of the car. The metal groaned. A shadow flickered across the windshield, arms, long and reaching, dragging forward. I swerved hard, tires screeching, gravel spraying into the night. The weight vanished, silence again. The car fishtailed before I pulled it back onto the center of the lane, chest heaving. My fingers trembled on the wheel. I forced myself to look in the mirror. Empty, but just as I exhaled, relief, disbelief, something. I heard it. The sound of breath. Not mine. Not shallow and panicked like mine. Slow, steady, coming from the back seat. The passenger. I didn't want to turn around. Every part of me screamed not to. But the sound, the breathing, was steady, deliberate, filling the cabin like it belonged here more than I did. My hands were slick on the wheel, my mouth dry. I forced myself, inch by inch, to glance at the rearview mirror, and he was there, seated directly behind me, as if he'd been riding along the whole time. Smooth, blank face tilted slightly, like he was studying the back of my head. I jerked the wheel, The car swayed, tires biting at the edge of the lane before I corrected. My chest was a furnace, every heartbeat slamming against my ribs. When I dared another look, he hadn't moved, just sitting, waiting. The worst part wasn't his face, or the absence of one. It was his hands. He had them folded neatly in his lap, perfectly still, perfectly patient. I thought about slamming the brakes, throwing open the door, running into the desert. But some part of me knew that was exactly what he wanted. So I kept driving, mile after mile, pretending not to see him. Minutes or hours bled together. My vision tunneled. My mind screamed. And then, just as sudden as he appeared, he was gone. The mirror showed only the back seat, empty. I let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. My throat ached from holding it back. But then, a whisper slid out from the passenger side, low and quiet, impossible to mistake. "You shouldn't have left me." And when I turned, slow, against every instinct, he was sitting in the front passenger seat, closer now. So close, I could feel the cold radiating off him, like the night had climbed inside my car. The passenger sighed. He sat there unmoving, his body angled toward me, blank face catching the glow of the dashboard. The air felt wrong, thin, brittle. My lungs burned with every shallow breath. I gripped the wheel tighter, afraid that if I let go, if I blinked too long, he'd move closer. He didn't. He just sat. The hum of the tires filled the silence, my own ragged breathing mixed with it, a desperate rhythm against his stillness. And then, he turned his head, slow, deliberate, toward me. That blank face locked onto mine, even though it had no eyes. The pressure of it dug into me like a weight, like drowning. His hand twitched once on the seat, the only movement, a twitch, sharp and quick like a reflex. And then, he spoke. Just one word. "Stay." Terrified. It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was soft, flat, carried on a voice that didn't match his form at all. Male, but thin, cracked, like old tape playing through broken speakers. I nearly lost control of the car. The wheel trembled in my hands as I fought to steady it. I couldn't look at him anymore, couldn't bear it. I fixed my eyes on the empty highway stretching out into black infinity. Seconds crawled. My chest screamed for air. When I dared another glance, he was gone. The passenger seat sat empty. Only the impression of his weight remained, pressed into the fabric. The clock. When he disappeared from the passenger seat, I thought it was over. I even dared to believe I'd shaken him. But then I glanced at the dashboard clock. 12:43 a.m. The same time it had been when I first saw him on the side of the road. I stared at the glowing digits, throat dry. I'd been driving for nearly an hour, maybe more. The fuel gauge had dropped. The miles had passed, but the clock hadn't moved. My hand shook as I tapped the face of it, desperate for it to change. But it didn't. 12:43. Outside, the desert stretched on, black, endless. I rolled the window down, hoping the cold night air might break the trance. But what came in wasn't air, not exactly. It smelled like dust and metal, sharp, like a train station long abandoned, and faint, almost buried in that scent. Something else, the smell of rot. I gagged, yanking the window back up. My pulse screamed in my ears. When I looked back at the road, my headlights swept across a new mile marker. Its paint was flaking, rusted, impossible to read, but carved deep into the metal, gouged with something sharp, were numbers. 1243. I gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles burned. My stomach turned. And then, from somewhere deep in the car, like it was rising up through the frame itself, came a low murmur. "You'll never leave." The hand, the voice faded, but the echo of it stayed in the frame of the car, like the metal had absorbed the sound. My chest was so tight it hurt. I tried to keep my eyes locked on the asphalt, on the fragile ribbon of road pulling me forward. But then I felt it. A weight. Not above me this time, not in the back seat, on my hand. I looked down. His hand was resting over mine on the steering wheel, pale, too long. Fingers stretched neatly across my own like they belonged there. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The wheel vibrated beneath both of us as the car flew down the empty highway, but his grip was steady. Stay. The same. Broken voice, quieter now, pleading. I wrenched my hand free, nearly swerving into the shoulder. My knuckles split against the hard plastic of the wheel. Blood welled in the cuts. When I looked again, he wasn't there. The seat was empty. The road was empty. But my hand still burned with the cold imprint of his touch. And on the wheel itself, faint but carved deep into the plastic, 4 digits. Jagged, uneven, like claw marks. 1243. 9. The change. The wheel still throbbed under my hands. That number gouged into the plastic, like it had always been there. My chest heaved as I forced the car to keep straight. I told myself not to look again, not to risk it. But I felt him before I saw him. The temperature dropped so fast my breath fogged the glass. The air grew heavy, thick, like it carried weight. And then, from the corner of my eye, I caught movement. He was back in the passenger seat, but different. Not still, not patient. His head twitched in short, jagged motions, snapping too fast, like a film reel stuttering. His hands, once folded neatly in his lap, were pressed flat against the dashboard, fingers splayed wide. He turned that blank face toward me, and for the first time, there was sound. Not words, not whispers, a rasping guttural scrape, like stone dragged across stone. It filled the cabin, vibrating in my bones. I clenched the wheel, nails biting into my palms. My ears rang from the pressure of it. Then, his hand slammed against the windshield. The glass shivered, spider web cracks branching out from his palm. I flinched so hard the car swerved, tires spitting gravel into the void. My heart nearly tore itself apart in my chest. The sound stopped. Silence. When I dared to look, he was gone again, but the cracks in the glass remained. The brake. The cracks on the windshield spread faster now, racing across the glass like veins of ice. Every line sang with pressure, a groaning vibration that filled my teeth, my skull. I gripped the wheel, knuckles raw, and whispered to myself, "Hold it together, hold it together." But then, his hand pressed against mine again, not gently this time, hard, forcing the wheel. The car veered left. I wrenched back right, tires screaming, rubber peeling against asphalt. My chest slammed the seat belt. The engine howled as the speed climbed past 90. The world blurred. And he spoke again. One word, low and sharp. Crash. The windshield shattered. A spray of glass, a wall of desert rushing up. The car tore off the shoulder, hit gravel, skidded sideways. My body was weightless for a heartbeat before the impact came. Metal screamed. Darkness swallowed me. The shoulder. When I woke, there was only silence. Not the silence of night, but the thick, heavy quiet of metal bent in on itself. My lungs scraped fire with every breath. The taste of blood filled my mouth, copper and grit. The windshield was gone. The dashboard crumbled. My headlights spilled weak light into the desert dust. I dragged myself free, glass carved into my arms, my palms. I barely felt it. The asphalt burned my knees as I crawled to the shoulder, coughing, retching, until nothing came up but spit and blood. The highway stretched in both directions, empty, endless. And then I saw it in the distance. 2 headlights, small at first, then growing. A car approaching. Hope flared, sharp and painful in my chest. Someone would stop. Someone would help. I pushed myself up, staggering to my feet, swaying in the middle of the shoulder. My legs barely held me. I raised one hand, weak, to wave. The car slowed as it drew level. I turned my head, desperate to see the driver's face. And he looked at me. Not a stranger, not some good Samaritan. He looked exactly like me. My own face, staring back at me from the driver's seat. The car idled for a heartbeat. Our eyes locked. Then he slammed his foot down. Tires screamed. Headlights flared. He shot forward, swallowed by the dark. And I was left standing alone on the shoulder. The last line. I don't remember how I got home. Maybe I never did. Maybe part of me is still out there, broken and bleeding on that shoulder. But somehow I'm here, sitting in front of this screen, trying to tell you, trying to warn you, because I've started to notice things. Mirrors don't quite reflect me anymore. When I lean close, the surface blurs. My features smear like wet paint, as if the glass refuses to hold my face. And every night since the crash, I've woken up at the same moment, 12:43 a.m. Always 12:43. I know what it means. I know what's waiting. That highway hasn't let me go. It's just letting me tell this first, to drag someone else into the story. So when you hear this, don't smile politely. Don't dismiss it as a campfire tale, because one night you may find yourself driving a stretch of desert road, headlights carving a tunnel through blackness. And if you see me on the shoulder, don't look. Don't you dare look. And if you ever find yourself